The grand palace of Astoria stood majestically against the morning sky as Queen Dalina nervously paced in her private chambers. For weeks, whispers had been circulating through the royal corridors about something that could shake the very foundation of the monarchy. The Queen's hands trembled slightly as she held a sealed envelope that contained results that could change everything. Dr. Margaret Thornfield, the royal physician, had been sworn to absolute secrecy when Queen Dalina requested the DNA test 3 months ago. The doctor's expression had been grave when she handed over the results the previous evening. The Queen had not slept since then, knowing that the contents of this envelope would either confirm her worst fears or put her mind at ease forever. The story began 2 years earlier when Queen Dalina discovered old letters hidden in the palace library. These letters, written by her late mother-in-law, contained shocking revelations about the royal bloodline. According to these documents, there had been questions about the legitimacy of certain heirs to the throne. The letters suggested that decades ago, there might have been affairs and secret relationships that could have altered the line of succession. Queen Dalina's world had turned upside down when she realized that these letters indirectly questioned the parentage of her own sons, Prince Willem and Prince Harin. The implications were enormous. If the letters were true, it would mean that the princes might not be the legitimate heirs to the throne. The scandal would not only destroy their family, but could potentially end the monarchy altogether. The Queen had kept this devastating secret to herself for months, carefully researching the claims made in the letters. She hired private investigators discreetly, using her personal funds rather than royal treasury money. The investigators confirmed that some of the events mentioned in the letters were true, including secret meetings and unexplained absences during crucial periods. What made matters worse was that the letters mentioned specific details about the late king's behavior during the early years of their marriage. According to the documents, the king had been involved with someone else during the time when the princes would have been conceived. The timing was too precise to be ignored, and the Queen knew she had to find out the truth. The DNA test had been arranged under the guise of a routine medical examination. The Queen had told her sons that it was a new protocol for royal health records. Prince Willem, being the elder at 28, had questioned the necessity but complied. Prince Harin, 26, and more trusting, had agreed without hesitation. Neither prince suspected that their mother was questioning their very identity. As Queen Dalina finally opened the envelope with shaking hands, she saw results that would change their lives forever. The test confirmed that both princes shared the same mother, but the paternity results were shocking. Prince Willem showed a clear genetic match with the late king, confirming he was indeed the legitimate heir. However, Prince Harin's results told a different story entirely. The papers clearly indicated that Prince Harin was not the biological son of the late king. The genetic markers showed no paternal connection whatsoever. This meant that everything the kingdom believed about their royal family was built on a lie. Prince Harin, who had been second in line to the throne his entire life, was not even royal blood. The Queen's mind raced with the implications. How could she tell her sons? How could she explain to Prince Harin that his entire identity was false? And what about Prince Willem, who would discover that his brother, his closest companion and confidant, was not his biological brother at all? The palace staff had noticed the Queen's strange behavior over the past few days. She had been avoiding public appearances and spending long hours alone in her study. Her personal secretary, Mrs. Elena Rodriguez, had expressed concern about the Queen's health and suggested consulting the royal physician. The Queen had dismissed these concerns, claiming she was simply tired from recent state duties. Meanwhile, Prince Willem had begun to suspect that something was wrong with his mother. He had noticed her avoiding eye contact during their daily briefings and her reluctance to discuss future royal engagements. As the heir to the throne, Willem was particularly sensitive to any changes in palace dynamics. He had confided in his brother Harin about their mother's unusual behavior. Prince Harin, always the more carefree of the two brothers, had initially dismissed Willem's concerns. However, as days passed, even he began to notice their mother's distant demeanor. The brothers had grown up extremely close, sharing not only their royal duties, but also their personal struggles and dreams. They had always been able to count on each other and their mother for support and guidance. The queen knew she would have to reveal the truth soon. The weight of the secret was becoming unbearable, and she feared that her changed behavior would eventually lead to speculation and rumors. The royal family had always prided itself on transparency and honesty with their subjects, and keeping such a monumental secret went against everything they stood for. What made the situation even more complicated was the question of who Prince Harin's biological father might be. The DNA test had only confirmed that the late king was not the father, but it provided no clues about the actual paternity. The queen realized she would need to delve deeper into her own past to uncover the truth, a prospect that terrified her. The letters from the late queen mother had mentioned several names, including palace staff members and visiting dignitaries from that time period. Some of these individuals were still alive, and the queen wondered if she should approach them for answers. However, she also feared that doing so might spread the secret beyond the royal family. As the sun set over the palace grounds, Queen Dalina made a decision that would change their family forever. She called her personal secretary and requested that Prince Willem and Prince Harin be summoned to her private chambers for an urgent family meeting. She specified that the meeting should be completely private, with no staff members or advisors present. The message sent to the princes simply stated that their mother needed to discuss a matter of utmost importance regarding the future of the monarchy. Both princes immediately sensed the gravity of the situation. They had never received such a formal yet mysterious summons from their mother before. Prince Willem arrived at the Queen's chambers first, his military training evident in his punctual and composed demeanor. He had served in the Royal Navy for 5 years before taking on full-time royal duties, and this experience had taught him to remain calm under pressure. However, seeing his mother's pale and anxious appearance immediately put him on alert. Prince Harin entered moments later, his usual cheerful expression quickly changing to concern when he saw the serious faces of his mother and brother. The three of them sat in the ornate sitting room where they had shared countless family moments over the years. The atmosphere was heavy with unspoken tension. Queen Dalina looked at her 2 sons, both of whom she loved equally despite the shocking revelation she had just discovered. She realized that no matter what the DNA test revealed, these 2 young men would always be her children in every way that mattered. The challenge now was finding a way to tell them the truth without destroying the close bond they had always shared. The silence in the Queen's private chambers was deafening as the 3 family members sat facing each other. Queen Dalina clutched the DNA test results in her hands, knowing that the next few minutes would forever change their relationships and possibly the entire kingdom. The weight of the truth felt heavier than any crown she had ever worn. Prince Willem, ever perceptive, noticed the official-looking documents in his mother's hands. His years of military service had taught him to read situations quickly, and he could sense that whatever news was coming would be life-altering. Prince Harin, meanwhile, fidgeted nervously, his intuitive nature picking up on the emotional turmoil radiating from both his mother and brother. Queen Dalina finally broke the silence, her voice barely above a whisper. She began by explaining the discovery of the letters in the palace library, watching as both princes' expressions changed from confusion to shock. She detailed how these letters had raised questions about the royal bloodline and how she had been tormented by doubt for months. When the queen revealed that she had ordered DNA tests for both princes, the reaction was immediate and intense. Prince Willem stood up abruptly, his face flushing with a mixture of anger and hurt. He demanded to know how their mother could question their identity without discussing it with them first. Prince Harin remained seated, but his hands began to shake as he processed the implications of what he was hearing. The queen, tears now flowing freely, handed the test results to Prince Willem. As he read the documents, his expression went through a series of changes, from disbelief to confirmation to a deep sadness for what this would mean for his brother. Prince Harin watched his older brother's face, already beginning to understand what the results might reveal about his own identity. When Prince Willem finally looked up from the papers, his eyes met those of Prince Harin. In that moment, both brothers understood the devastating truth without a single word being spoken. Prince Harin was not the biological son of their late father, which meant he was not truly royal blood. The revelation hit Prince Harin like a physical blow, and he doubled over as if in pain. The next hour was filled with raw emotion as the family tried to process this earth-shattering news. Prince Harin's first reaction was denial. He insisted there must be a mistake, that the tests were wrong, that this was all some terrible nightmare. He paced around the room, running his hands through his hair, desperately trying to find a logical explanation that would restore his world to its previous order. Prince Willem, despite his own shock, immediately stepped into his role as the protective older brother. He put his arm around Prince Harin and assured him that nothing would change between them. Blood or no blood, they had been brothers their entire lives, and that bond would never be broken. His words provided some comfort, but they could not erase the fundamental shift that had just occurred in Prince Harin's understanding of himself. Queen Dalina explained that she had no idea who Prince Harin's biological father might be. The DNA test had only confirmed what the father was not, leaving a giant question mark over Prince Harin's true parentage. This uncertainty added another layer of anguish to an already unbearable situation. Prince Harin was not only losing his royal identity, but was also left wondering about his true origins. The discussion turned to the practical implications of this discovery. As the Queen explained, this revelation could potentially destabilize the entire monarchy if it became public knowledge. The people of Astoria had loved and accepted Prince Harin as their future spare heir. Many citizens had expressed preference for his more relaxed and approachable personality compared to Prince Willem's more formal military bearing. Prince Willem immediately declared that he would not let this revelation destroy his brother's life or position. He suggested that they could keep the information secret and continue as they always had. However, Queen Dalina explained that living with such a monumental lie would be impossible, especially given their family's commitment to honesty and integrity. The conversation became heated when Prince Harin accused his mother of destroying their family for the sake of satisfying her curiosity. He argued that some truths were better left unknown, and that her decision to pursue the DNA tests had been selfish and destructive. Queen Dalina broke down completely, admitting that she had been tormented by the uncertainty, but acknowledging that her decision had indeed brought catastrophic consequences. Prince Willem found himself in the difficult position of mediating between his mother and brother while dealing with his own emotional turmoil. Learning that his closest companion was not his biological brother was devastating, but he was determined not to let this knowledge affect their relationship. He had always admired Prince Harin's kindness, humor, and genuine connection with people, qualities that had nothing to do with bloodlines. As the night wore on, the family began to discuss possible courses of action. One option was to reveal the truth publicly and deal with whatever consequences followed. Another was to maintain the secret within the family and continue with royal duties as normal. A third possibility was for Prince Harin to voluntarily step away from royal life, though this option was immediately rejected by both his mother and brother. Prince Harin surprised everyone by suggesting that they needed time to process this information before making any decisions. He proposed that they each take some time alone to think about what this meant for their individual futures and for the monarchy as a whole. Despite his emotional pain, he showed remarkable maturity in recognizing that such a momentous decision could not be made in the heat of the moment. The Queen agreed with this suggestion and proposed that they temporarily suspend all public engagements to give themselves space to think. She would inform the palace staff that the royal family needed privacy due to a personal matter, without revealing any details. This would buy them time to decide how to proceed without immediate pressure from their royal duties. Before they separated that night, Prince Willem made a solemn promise to both his mother and Prince Harin. He declared that regardless of what they decided to do about the public revelation, nothing would change his love and loyalty to his brother. He emphasized that Prince Harin had earned his place in the family through 26 years of shared experiences, not through genetics. Prince Harin, though still deeply shaken, thanked his brother for this assurance. However, he also expressed his need to understand who he really was. The uncertainty about his biological father had become a burning question that he felt compelled to answer. He announced his intention to investigate his true parentage, regardless of where that investigation might lead. Queen Dalina supported her son's decision, but warned him about the potential dangers of such an investigation. If Prince Harin's biological father was still alive, contacting him could lead to exposure of their secret. If the father was someone of questionable character or from a scandal-ridden background, it could make their situation even more complicated. The meeting ended with each family member retiring to their respective quarters, all of them changed forever by the evening's revelations. Queen Dalina returned to her chambers carrying the weight of guilt for having initiated this devastating discovery. She lay awake all night, wondering if her need to know the truth had been worth the pain it had caused her beloved sons. Prince Willem spent the night in his study, looking through photo albums and remembering all the moments he had shared with Prince Harin over the years. Every birthday, every holiday, every triumph and disappointment they had experienced together felt even more precious now that he knew they were not biological brothers. The bond they had forged was based on love and shared experience rather than genetics, and he found this realization strangely comforting. Prince Harin sat by his bedroom window, staring out at the palace grounds where he had played as a child. Everything looked the same, but he felt like a stranger in his own home. The identity he had carried his entire life had been stripped away in a single evening. He was no longer Prince Harin of Astoria, second in line to the throne. He was simply Harin, a young man with an unknown father and an uncertain future. As dawn broke over the palace, all three family members knew that their lives had been irrevocably changed. The secret they now shared would either bring them closer together or tear them apart forever. The next phase of their journey would test not only their love for each other, but also their commitment to the principles and values that had guided the royal family for generations. 3 weeks had passed since the devastating revelation, and the palace had become unusually quiet. The royal family's sudden withdrawal from public life had sparked intense speculation in the media and among the citizens of Astoria. Reporters stationed outside the palace gates reported unusual activity and the absence of the princes from their regular charitable events and official functions. Prince Harin had spent these weeks conducting his own private investigation into his true parentage. Using the palace's extensive archives and his mother's personal journals, he had begun to piece together a timeline of events from around the period of his conception. What he discovered would prove to be even more shocking than the original DNA revelation. The investigation led Prince Harin to a former palace gardener named Thomas Blackwood, who had worked at the royal estate during the relevant time period. Thomas, now retired and living in a small cottage on the outskirts of the capital, had maintained detailed personal diaries throughout his years of service. When Prince Harin approached him privately, the elderly man's reaction confirmed what the young prince had begun to suspect. Thomas revealed that he and Queen Dalina had developed a deep emotional connection during a particularly difficult period in her marriage to the late king. The king had been traveling extensively on diplomatic missions, leaving the young queen feeling isolated and lonely. What began as friendly conversations about the palace gardens had slowly evolved into something more meaningful. The revelation that Prince Harin's biological father was a commoner working at the palace added new dimensions to their crisis. This was not simply a matter of questionable royal bloodlines, but rather proof of an affair that had resulted in a child who had been raised as a prince. The implications for the monarchy were staggering, as the people of Astoria had very traditional views about royal propriety and bloodlines. When Prince Harin brought this information to his mother and brother, the family meeting that followed was even more emotional than their first encounter with the DNA results. Queen Dalina confirmed Thomas's account, explaining that she had been young, lonely, and struggling with the pressures of royal life when the affair occurred. She had never intended for it to result in pregnancy, and she had lived with the guilt and uncertainty for over 26 years. Prince Willem's reaction was complex and conflicted. While he maintained his loyalty to his brother, he struggled with anger toward his mother for her deception and the predicament it had created for their family. As the future king, he was acutely aware that this scandal could undermine the entire institution of the monarchy and damage the royal family's relationship with their subjects. The situation became even more complicated when Thomas Blackwood expressed his desire to meet his biological son properly and perhaps develop a relationship with him. Prince Harin found himself torn between his curiosity about his real father and his loyalty to the royal family that had raised him. The prospect of having a relationship with Thomas meant acknowledging his non-royal heritage and potentially damaging the monarchy further. Meanwhile, the media pressure was intensifying. Several news outlets had begun speculating about the reasons for the royal family's seclusion, with some reporters suggesting everything from serious illness to financial scandals. The palace's continued refusal to provide explanations only fueled more speculation and rumors. The breakthrough in their dilemma came from an unexpected source. Princess Catherine, Prince Willem's wife, who had been kept informed of the situation, suggested a bold and unprecedented approach. She proposed that the family consider being completely transparent with the public about the situation, framing it as a story of love, family bonds, and the truth that families come in many forms. Princess Catherine argued that modern royal families in other countries had survived similar scandals by embracing honesty and showing their humanity. She believed that the people of Astoria, who had always loved Prince Harin for his genuine personality and charitable work, might be more accepting than the family expected. Her suggestion was that they control the narrative by revealing the truth themselves rather than waiting for it to be discovered by others. The idea of voluntary disclosure was initially rejected by both Queen Dalina and Prince Willem, who feared the potential backlash and constitutional crisis it could create. However, Prince Harin surprised everyone by expressing support for Princess Catherine's suggestion. He argued that living with such a massive secret was unsustainable and that the truth would eventually emerge anyway. Prince Harin's willingness to risk everything for the sake of honesty impressed his family and forced them to reconsider their options. He explained that he had always felt slightly different from his brother, never quite fitting into the formal royal mold, and that learning about his true parentage had actually provided some relief and self-understanding. After days of intense discussion and consultation with trusted advisors, the royal family made their decision. They would hold a televised address to the nation, during which Queen Dalina would reveal the truth about Prince Harin's parentage and take full responsibility for her actions. Prince Willem would emphasize his unwavering support for his brother, and Prince Harin would speak about his intention to continue serving the people of Astoria, regardless of his biological heritage. The preparation for this unprecedented royal announcement required careful coordination with the palace's communications team, constitutional experts, and government officials. Everyone involved understood that they were entering uncharted territory that could either humanize the royal family or seriously damage the institution of the monarchy. On the evening of the announcement, the entire nation gathered around their television sets and computers to hear what their royal family had to say. Queen Dalina appeared visibly nervous, but determined as she began by acknowledging that the royal family had been dealing with a personal matter that affected not only their family, but also the nation. The Queen's revelation about her affair and Prince Harin's true parentage sent shockwaves through the country. However, her obvious remorse and the genuine emotion in her voice resonated with many viewers. She emphasized that her actions had been wrong, but that Prince Harin had grown up to be exactly the kind of person any parent would be proud to call their child. Prince Willem's speech about brotherhood and loyalty moved many viewers to tears. He spoke eloquently about how family bonds are created through shared experiences, love, and mutual support rather than simply genetics. His declaration that Prince Harin would always be his brother and would always have a place in the royal family was met with widespread approval. The most impactful moment came when Prince Harin himself addressed the nation. Speaking with remarkable composure and maturity, he acknowledged the unusual circumstances of his birth while expressing his deep love for the country and its people. He announced his intention to continue his charitable work and public service, but as a private citizen rather than as a royal prince. Prince Harin's decision to voluntarily relinquish his royal titles and position in the line of succession was both shocking and admirable. He explained that this choice would eliminate any constitutional complications while allowing him to serve the people of Astoria in a more authentic way. His sacrifice for the good of the monarchy and the nation earned him tremendous respect from citizens across the country. The public reaction to the royal announcement was more positive than anyone had dared hope. While there was certainly some criticism and shock, the overwhelming response was one of admiration for the family's honesty and courage. Many citizens expressed support for Prince Harin's continued involvement in public life, even without royal status. Social media exploded with messages of support for the royal family, particularly for Prince Harin's grace under pressure and his selfless decision to prioritize the country's stability over his own position. The hashtag Prince Earn Our Hero began trending within hours of the broadcast, showing that his popularity with the people had not diminished despite the revelations about his parentage. The meeting between Prince Harin and his biological father Thomas Blackwood took place privately a week after the announcement. The encounter was emotional for both men, with Thomas expressing pride in the man his son had become and Prince Harin finding peace in finally understanding his origins. They agreed to maintain contact and develop their relationship gradually away from public scrutiny. In the months that followed, Prince Harin established a new foundation focused on helping young people from difficult backgrounds find their purpose and potential. His personal experience of identity confusion and reinvention made him uniquely qualified to help others facing similar challenges. The foundation quickly became one of the most successful and popular charitable organizations in the country. Queen Dalina faced some criticism for her past actions, but her obvious remorse and the positive outcome of her family's honesty eventually led to public forgiveness. She resumed her royal duties with a new sense of authenticity and humility that actually enhanced her connection with the people. Prince Willem's handling of the crisis elevated his standing as the future king. His loyalty to his brother and his leadership during the family's most difficult period demonstrated the kind of character and integrity that would serve him well when he eventually took the throne. The royal family's decision to choose truth over concealment ultimately strengthened rather than weakened the institution of the monarchy. Their willingness to be vulnerable and honest with their subjects created a new model for modern royalty that emphasized humanity and authenticity over perfection and tradition. The story of Queen Dalina's hidden DNA test and its aftermath became a defining moment for the Astorian royal family. It proved that even the most devastating secrets could be overcome through courage, honesty, and the unbreakable bonds of love and loyalty that truly define a family. Prince Harin's transformation from royal prince to beloved public figure showed that true nobility comes from character and service rather than bloodlines or titles.